Let's talk about classics a little. Greetings, my name is Nina, you're watching Rockstar Wizardess, welcome back to my channel. Those of you who have watched my previous videos know that I love fantasy books very much. However, I do read other genres, and obviously I do read classics. I already have a video about classics on my channel, and why not do another one? There are not too many books here, and some of the books were in the old video too. Why not show them again? Anyway, let's do this. Those who watched my previous videos know that I really love Beneath the Wheel by Hermann Hesse a lot. This is a German classics about a boy named Hans Gibernrath who sacrifices everything, his free time, his mental health, and his hobbies and everything in order to study, to go to a prestigious gymnasium. And this book is about how this affects a child. This is about negative effects of intense studying and how the education system is very flawed. I tend to talk a lot about this book, praise it a lot. However, I do have an unpopular opinion that it should have ended around chapter 6. No, sorry, it was around chapter 5. Also, a fact about this book, there's a song inspired by this book. It's called Beneath the Wheel by DRI. It's a thrash metal song from the 80s. And this song also has a line that I really like very much. School's a job, but you don't get paid. The chapters in this book aren't short, they are quite long, however, there aren't too many chapters. This book is quite short. So if you wanna know more, watch my Why It's Worth Reading episode dedicated to Beneath the Wheel. Next classic is a book that I read this year. I'm glad I did. It's a really solid classic novel, and this is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So this book is about a guy named Alex. He's a teenager who really loves doing violent acts. And one day he decides to commit a burglary, and it goes completely wrong. And he, spoiler alert, becomes a victim of violence himself. So this Russian edition of the book has a philosophical question. Can you save the world from evil when you take away one's free will and you turn them into a clockwork orange? The solid question. However, when I was reading the book, there was another question coming up in my mind. Can you fight violence with more violence? The violence physical is fought with violence mostly psychological, but nonetheless. And also the author takes random words in the text and writes them differently. Okay, so I do not know how it is in the original English version, but in the Russian version, some random words are taken and written in Latin instead of Cyrillic. To be honest, I still do not understand why the author did that. Maybe I should read the English version to understand this, but still. Yeah, the book is violent and brutal, but still very interesting to read. Next book is a play. It's a short play. You can read it in a few days. And it's The Crucible by Arthur Miller. I heard that in American schools this book is a required reading, but that's not the case here. I picked this up on my own. This play is set, I think it was 1692 in Massachusetts. During the Salem witch trials, everyone could accuse everyone of being a witch. And this book is mostly about how absurd this whole thing is. And I find it kind of ironic that one of the book's most despicable characters says the right thing. I do not remember the exact words, but he says that just because someone accused someone first doesn't mean that they are right, or something like that. And that's actually correct. Yeah, this is a play about the power of accusations, especially false accusations. It depicts madness of the whole thing. This is especially prevalent in the scene in the court where these girls start to dance as if they are being possessed by demons. This play is loosely based on a true story, and just like the story is loosely based on true stories, there are elements of fiction in here that contradict reality. Well, for example, Abigail in reality was 12 and Proctor was 60, and they did not have an affair. but it's still a very compelling read all the same. I do really want to add some Russian classics here, and it's the book that not many people talk about. And the book is it's a short story, and I love it very much. And it's Poor Lisa by Nikolai Karamzin. I do need to confess that I love this book by really odd reasons. Sure, it's a very nice story to read, but I love it for completely different reasons. Poor Lisa is about a girl named Lisa who lives with her mother, who is sick. They live in a village, and Lisa goes to Moscow every day to sell flowers. And one day she catches the attention of a guy named Erast, and then Erast and Lisa they become close. And spoiler alert, it ends tragically. I have very fond memories of this book. Maybe it's a bit sentimental, maybe sad, but I still do recommend reading that book, especially if you are a Russian speaker. Go read this because it's a really nice story all the same, and it's one of the few required readings in school that I actually enjoyed. Let's go on with Russian classics. I decided to add some Dostoevsky here. You would probably think that I would name Crime and Punishment or White Knights, but I will go along with The Humiliated and the Insulted. In English, for some reason, it's the other way around. It's for some reason it's called The Insulted and Humiliated. It's better to say Humiliated and Insulted. There's a guy who meets a very dysfunctional couple. They, including their relatives, tell him the story of this dysfunctional couple. This book is mostly about selfishness of the Russian intelligentsia, aka intellectuals. Next book over here is Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. It's a very satirical book. Yeah, this is the story about a young boy named Oliver Twist who is born an orphan in an orphanage. His mother dies after she gives birth to him, and the story is his journey with people who abuse him and people who love him. And I do remember it a lot when I was a teenager, but unfortunately there are details that I do not remember that well. There were a lot of moments when I felt sorry for Oliver because he encountered quite a lot of unlikely people. A lot of jerks. Next is the classics that I am in the process of reading. It's Georgian classics. Me, Grandma, Iliko, and Ilarion by Nodar Dumbadze. This is the story about a guy named Zura, who grows up with his grandmother Olga. He's friends with Iliko and Ilarion, and he also has a dog, Murada. And each chapter is basically a short story. So each chapter is a short story, sort of a tragical comedy. I do really like this line at the very beginning of the book. Study, you fool, or you will be left uneducated. This book is translated into English. Now let me recommend a few short stories. Well, the first short story I want to recommend is The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell. Actually, this particular edition, this Penguin Little Black Classics edition, contains two short stories. The titular, The Old Nurse Story, and Curious If Time. And I'd say that I like the titular, The Old Nurse Story, better. I do recommend this. This short story is written from the perspective of a young girl who was left in the custody of an orphan child, and she swore to protect the child, but the child has relatives, and the girl is actually governess, and together they go to a mansion, and they uncover a lot of family drama. The story is set in Northumberland, this is where the mansion is, and the child encounters a lot of unlikely events. This is sort of a ghost story, and it's really compelling, and I read it twice. However, in case you are not a native English speaker, it can be a bit hard to read in English. The second time I read this in Russian to understand this better. And then we have short stories by Shirley Jackson. I'm reading this book really slowly on purpose, and I will name you a few short stories that I really liked. I liked the Intoxicated. In this edition is the very first short story. It's about a guy who has a conversation with a teenage girl, and the more they talk, the more the girl scares him. And also I really like The Demon Lover, about a woman who is searching for her groom. she's about to get married and her groom isn't anywhere to be found, and she wanders around and tries to find him. And I really enjoyed Charles. Charles is about a young boy who comes home every day from kindergarten or school or whatever it was, and it tells his parents about a boy named Charles a lot. But then when the mother asks the teachers about Charles, she encounters a plot twist. And finally, the last book in this video. This is going to be shocking to certain people, but it's still classics, and it's obviously Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, I know that some people might complain that this is a fantasy book, it should not be considered a classic. However, allow me to share a secret with you. Classics is a collection of various different genres: mystery novels, historical fiction, horror, and fantasy. Fantasy is classics. So I'm in the process of reading Lord of the Rings right now. This is my 4th time reading Lord of the Rings, and for the first time I'm reading the first book in the same translation as the other two. Well, I have my old Russian editions of Lord of the Rings are in different translations, and in the right translation, this book is quite fast-paced. I have read nearly 200 pages of the first book, Fellowship of the Ring, and I did not realize that the book is very whimsical and fun. Sure, there are a lot of dark moments, epic moments, but there are also a lot of whimsical moments and comforting moments. There's a lot of description of food and comforting places and singing and so on. And the whimsical part obviously is the part with Tom Bombadil. Yeah, this book is so much fun. And yeah, this is classics. Fantasy books are classics. Anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Goodbye.